Roanoke, Virginia. Considered by many the Star City of the South, this video chronicles some of the sights we saw on a family trip. The sunlight was peeking over the rolling hills of the Blue Ridge Mountains as we made our landing at Roanoke Blacksburg Regional Airport. Coming from Florida, seeing mountains in the background is definitely a rare sight, as here in Pinellas County, Florida, it's nothing but concrete as far as the eye can see. After landing and visiting with some family, we made our first initial trip to the Dixie Caverns in Salem. As the story goes, back in, I believe they said 1923, a couple of brothers were walking their dog when their dog fell through a hole in the mountain. When they lowered a rope and went down to rescue their dog, they discovered these caverns. Eventually, they decided to open up the caverns for tours, digging out a portion of them so people could get through. And years later, today, the tours are still going on, though under different management. This is a formation known as the Wedding Bell, and there have been actual weddings that have taken place there. I will say that visiting these caverns is very exhausting, and for me it was a one and done thing, but I truly enjoyed it, and it was a sight to see. The next morning we were visited by a couple of feathered friends. We'll call them Donald and Daisy. After breakfast, it was off to downtown Roanoke to the Virginia Museum of Transportation. The Virginia Museum of Transportation is built out of an old renovated freight station. Here you can see all the different railroads that ran through Virginia.
No, I don't.
Here we have one of the many iterations of the USS Roanoke in a small shipping section that they have. And this is the HMS Bounty. While it is a museum of transportation, it is heavily railroad themed. Here they have a cab of a diesel engine that you can get inside. I can safely say that because of my size, I would not be a good fit. Then it was off to the aviation section where they have a work-in-progress flight simulator and this Learjet that you could go into.
This is what it's like getting kidnapped.
Of course, Ben likes cracking his jokes,
Sit down.
but it was really neat seeing the cockpit. The military aviation exhibit is still under construction, but they had a lot of cool models in there. Being a Star Trek fan, I got a kick out of the fact this balloon was called the Enterprise. These are uniforms worn by various people that worked for various airlines. For some reason, I really liked the benches they had. And then on the floor, they had painted a train track that was sort of a timeline. Then it was off to outside where the rail yard is. We got lucky as that a Norfolk Southern hopper train was passing as we walked outside. This is an old Norfolk Southern carriage where they show movies. This is an old Norfolk Southern 2664 that was built in 1943. You really don't get a scope of the size of these things until you're standing right next to them. This is the smoke box on the 2663, as well as turning around and looking at the tender behind you. They had this nice EMD diesel unit, and I found my school bus for the upcoming school year. They had this caboose that you could actually go inside, and it was neat to see that they had to put certain accommodations like a gas stove, because conductors and brakemen would live for days and weeks in these things. This is an old kiddie ride-on train that used to be up at Mill Mountain. We'll have a little bit more on Mill Mountain later.
Mill Mountain Zoo Chew. I wonder if Mom's been on this.
Maybe.
Why don't they get stuff like this at like?
Grandma might have got on something like this when she was a little girl.
Stay off. Don't get on.
Then it was back inside to the O-gauge train layout.
Here's a SpongeBob train. Oh my god, the whole SpongeBob scene. It's a SpongeBob scene. Radiator Springs.
Then it was on to the automobile room. Lots of classic vehicles in here. Sorry folks, that DeLorean does not have a flux capacitor.
That's okay.
And they had a large circus set
I'll
up.
explain in a minute.
The circus.
That evening, it was off to Mill Mountain to the Roanoke Star, an 88.5-foot tall star that overlooks the city of Roanoke. The views are absolutely breathtaking, and I'm just going to let this part play and not really talk over it. The following morning, we were visited once again by Donald and Daisy. This would be a good time to talk about where we stayed. We stayed in a house that we found on Airbnb. It is known as Patsy's house because it was owned by a woman who was a nurse in a local hospital in Roanoke. It's a very lovely home, very home feeling, and I recommend it to anybody who wants to stay in the area. They even give you a nice little story about Patsy. From there, it was off to the National D-Day Memorial. Now, you know me, I got to get my shots of school buses. The memorial is a very lovely site dedicated to the men who fought, died, and served on the D-Day invasion. This fountain is extremely powerful, kind of showing the invasion as it was happening, with little jets of water shooting to represent bullets hitting. This plane didn't serve as part of D-Day, but it was through this plane that Uncle Ron actually learned something. A little inside between me and Uncle Ron. Around the fountain, they had plaques with the names of the people who died in the D-Day invasion. Standing in the center of this gazebo is a statue of Dwight D. Eisenhower, and it's surrounded by various generals and admirals and whatnot who served during D-Day. This statue is a statue in tribute to the Bedford Boys of Bedford, Virginia. Just off the memorial is the Bedford Area Welcome Center, where they had a fire department exhibit. So I thought I'd include that here as well. And with that, it was time to leave as the sun rose on day 4. Again, seeing mountains in the background rather than flat concrete. We really enjoyed our trip, and it was awesome meeting and enjoying time with family. So, to Judy, Ron, Joe, Beth, Paul, Tanis, and Kellen, we will miss you all, and we will see you all very soon. Thanks everybody for watching. I know my narration's not the best. I do the best I can, but I'm not very good at putting words together. But I really hope to make this trip again, and if you're in the Roanoke, Virginia area, check out some of these sites. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.